So a little bit about me. I joined Purdue about 2 years ago. Time flies. And I founded and currently lead the geoinformatics, ecosystem management, and soil sustainability lab. But before then, I was a research scientist with the government of Canada. I received my postdoctoral training in Sweden and my PhD in soil science from the University of British Columbia in Canada. So let's start by talking about soils. So 5th of December each year, FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, and the global community celebrate World Soil Day. And the theme of the most recent one was caring for soils, measure, monitor, and manage, which specifically emphasized the need for accurate soil data and information for understanding soil characteristics that supports informed decision making for sustainable soil management and food security. We still rely on soils for more than 95% of our food. Therefore, our survival depends on our precious link with soil and the agroecosystems. And globally, the demand for food production is increasing at an alarming rate. It is projected that by 2050, the global food demand will be increased by more than 50%. And this is putting an enormous pressure on our natural land base and soil resources. This map here is showing the global cropland expansion roughly over the last 20-year period. And green in the map are stable croplands, blue is expansion, and red is cropland reduction. So from 2000 to 2019, globally, the cropland area was expanded by 9%. But most importantly, during the same period, the net productivity of cropland observed an increase of 25%. So net primary productivity, or NPP, is not a direct indicator of crop yield, but it's a measure of vegetation health. And therefore, an increase in NPP refers to more vegetation growth in the cropland area. That means we either expanded the cropland extent or farmed the land more intensively to produce more food. So the same research found that more than 1/3 of this NPP growth is attributed to the stable cropland during this period, which indicates that we are definitely farming our lands more intensively to produce more food. And if we look at a US specific study, what this map is showing, so in the US from 2008 to 2016, cropland have been expanded at a rate of over 1 million acres per year. So all the red areas in the map are expanded croplands. But this cropland expansion came at a high price of biodiversity loss of natural vegetations like grassland, and increased carbon emissions, while most of these emitted carbon came from soils. And this change have close connection with soil health and agricultural productivity. So this same study also estimated that yield from this expanded cropland area and found that about 70% of these cropland performed below the national average with a mean yield deficit of 6.5%. So farming more lands and farming more intensively may not provide us with the optimum yield benefits in the long run. Our farming system requires sustainable solutions, require more data-driven decision-making for enhanced soil and agroecosystem health. And in this talk, I will focus on soil organic carbon or soil organic matter as a key soil health parameter and also as an essential indicator of agroecosystem functioning. So let's dive a bit deeper to understand why managing and monitoring of soil organic carbon is important for soil and agroecosystem sustainability. So currently, we have about 895 petagram of carbon in the atmosphere, while the top 1 meter of soil stores about 1,500 petagram of carbon, and the top 2 meters stores about 2,400 petagram of carbon. So it is the largest carbon pool in the terrestrial biosphere. While unsustainable land management practices may cause a significant loss of this stored soil organic carbon, but if we are careful and practice management strategies that benefits soil health improvements like cover cropping, reduced tillage, we may sequester a large part of atmospheric carbon dioxide that was already released. And this has recently led to the emergence of soil carbon trading markets, which offers financial incentives to offset the cost of implementing soil carbon storing management strategies. But why, as a producer, we should be more interested in sequestering carbon in our farmlands? As I mentioned already, soil organic carbon is a key parameter for soil fertility and influences a range of soil functions. For example, SOC enhances infiltration and water holding capacity of soil, both of which are crucial components for soil water dynamics and management. SOC also improves soil tilt or soil structure, nutrient storage and cycling, and enhances resilience against different diseases. And all of these functions contribute to better crop health and productivity and provide effective adaptation against environmental stresses like changes in precipitation pattern, high frequency of extreme rainfall or summer droughts. So sequestering atmospheric carbon in soils can provide benefits for improving crop production as well as for enhancing agroecosystem resilience against different environmental disturbances. And now the question is how geospatial informatics can be included in these activities of improving and monitoring of soil organic matter and soil health. So our agricultural landscape is highly heterogeneous, where soil properties can largely vary even within a short distance, where farming management practices, crop types can vary substantially. And to capture this variability and to optimize our resource inputs, we require precision site-specific management. And this is where geospatial informatics can be quite valuable. So in the recent year, we have seen a significant development in different digital tools and technologies. Our farming management system is getting equipped with different sensing technologies, advanced computing, and data analytics for accurate and site-specific management. We can leverage terabytes of time series data sets from satellite remote sensing, from drones, from RTK GPS and proximal sensing. And combined with machine learning and AI, these data sets can provide valuable insights about our farming practices, about crop productivity, and overall sustainability of the ecosystem. So in my lab at Purdue, I leverage these tools for monitoring and managing soil and agroecosystem health. To provide on-farm solutions that take into account the landscape scale variability that I just discussed a couple of slides ago, and also the farm level variation that you are seeing in this picture. The field you are seeing here on the right and left are pretty similar soil types. They're high clay and poorly drained soils, but one receives grassland rotations regularly to build carbon, and the other does not. Although both of them have subsurface drainage installed, their behavior is quite different, as you are seeing in this picture. So in the next few minutes, I'll present examples from a few of my projects at both farm and landscape scale, where I leverage different geospatial tools and data set to produce outcomes for site-specific management of croplands. So in this first study, which was conducted in the Lower Fraser Valley of British Columbia in Canada. So the study area, Lower Fraser Valley, is one of the most dominant agricultural regions of British Columbia and responsible for about half of its agricultural production. As a result, over the last few decades, Lower Fraser Valley has been intensively farmed and experienced substantial changes in land management activities, which might have caused a sizable loss of soil organic carbon. On top of that, model predicted a significant rise in temperature and precipitation by 2050. And these changes are posing concerns for agricultural soil management, especially due to poor drainage and workable condition in many parts of the valley, as I exhibited in the last slide. So this is why developing site-specific management strategies at the field to landscape scale is an immediate priority for this region. So in this project, we looked at the spatiotemporal dynamics of soil organic carbon, land use, land cover changes, and changes in weather pattern. So the diagram summarizes the overall approach used in this study. We use time series Landsat satellite image to predict the changes in land use, land cover, and soil organic carbon from 1984 to 2018. We employed some machine learning models to extract information from the time series satellite image, time series weather information, existing soil survey data, and digital elevation model, and produce map at different time step to understand their spatial temporal interactions. And this is what we came up with. The map here shows the absolute changes in soil organic carbon between 1984 and 2018 at the top 15 centimeter of soil across this landscape. So anything green in this map is SOC grain, which is almost non-existent. Red is SOC loss, and yellow is somewhere in between. So I found that about 61% of this landscape observed a decline in soil organic carbon, while increase was observed only in 12% of the lands, and 27% remain unchanged. But overall, I estimated a total loss of 5.8 megaton of carbon dioxide equivalent during the study period across the region, assuming that bulk density did not change during this period. And this loss is about 2.5 times of British Columbia's annual agricultural emission, which is quite substantial. So when we look closer at where these losses were, we saw that it mostly was in the annual crop that has not been changed during the study period and constantly being managed for similar agricultural production. So that indicates a large portion of this farmland have been intensively farmed during the study period and largely contributed to the loss of soil organic carbon. So in this graph, the box plots are showing the distribution of relative changes in soil organic carbon over the whole study period. The black dots are the mean of total number of pixels within each class of land use land cover changes. In some cases, we saw some gains, while in some cases, we saw higher losses. But overall, the mean was showing loss of soil organic carbon. But we also saw some great potential of soil organic carbon gain for these two classes. The rotation of annual crop and grassland and conversion of annual crop to perennial crop, which was mostly blueberry production for this study area. So from this research, we identified specific land use management practices that are responsible for SOC losses and gains, and also pinpoint the farms where losses and gains are coming from so that informed management strategy could be derived. So now I will move on to some farm level study. So we also wanted to know how the farm level dynamics of soil organic carbon interact with croplands. And this project we just started about a year ago. So I'll be presenting some very preliminary results. My graduate student Omiya and postdoc Fitsum are working on these projects. So we took one of our Purdue research firm as a test bench for this geospatial modeling exercise. So we collected historical soil and crop data from different years between 2016 and 2024. Here you are seeing some of the soil samples that were systematically collected across the whole farm, which is about 1,600 hectares. And this map is showing the crop yield from 2023 for both corn and soybean, corn in red and soybean in green. And we collected similar crop yield data set for all the years during the study periods. And with these field data sets, we are combining historical satellite images at 10-meter spatial resolution and LiDAR data set to understand the terrain variability at 2-meter spatial resolution to build time series maps of changes in soil organic matter and crop yields, and to identify how they interact spatially and temporally. So this is our preliminary outcomes, where we identified the time series trends using Mann-Kendall test, which is a non-parametric statistical trend test. Here in this figure, you are seeing the changes in soil organic matter between 2016 and 2024. Anything green in this map is increase in soil organic matter, brown is decrease, and yellowish is no change or slight change. Similarly, we produce change maps for corn and also for soybean yield. As you can see, the areas where soil organic carbon was declining, that has some impacts on the corn yield, while for soybean yield, the impact was relatively minor. So we wanted to further summarize this map, these outcomes with these maps, where on the left, you are seeing spatiotemporal interactions between changes in SOM and corn yield, and on the right, the interaction between soil organic matter and soybean yield. So for both soil organic matter and crop yield had positive changes, which you are seeing in green, and that covers about 50 to 60% of the farm. But interestingly, the purple color in the map, where SOC was declining but still exhibited positive yields. So for corn, those areas were about 12%. However, it is about 23% for soybean yield. So we're still investigating what management practices are driving these changes for both soil organic matter decline or increase, as well as how management practices were adapted with these changes in soil health parameters. However, we don't have those data sets ready yet, but we assume soybean generally performs better than corn in soils with poor organic matter because soybean can fix nitrogen from the atmosphere, but corn relies heavily on the soil-based nitrogen sources or fertilizer inputs, so which can be limited in soils with low organic matter. So that's why we're thinking even those soil organic carbon was declining in some part of the field. Soybean yield probably was relatively less impacted than corn yield. But as I said, we are still looking at the management information during the whole study period to identify some specific management practices that might have contributed to this spatiotemporal interaction between soil organic carbon and crop yield variability. So far I have talked about mapping and modeling of soil organic carbon changes at different scales using geospatial data set, but what is about the requirement for soil samples that is required for producing these spatially explicit maps or even for assessing soil health when we do our routine soil health tests annually? So in this project, we are focusing on developing a tool that will help us identify the optimum locations for soil sampling that identify the areas with the most spatial variability. My graduate student Nelson is working on this project. So in general, the notion is that as we increase the number of soil samples, we better capture the spatial variability of our soil landscape. But that also increase the overall cost and efforts of our soil health assessment. So we hypothesize that there is an optimum point at which the number of samples and spatial variability are optimized. And if we can identify that optimum point, that will improve the accuracy and cost effectiveness of our soil health assessment. So in this project, we did a thorough literature review and identified 4 sampling approaches that are generally used for soil health assessments. So the first one is the simple random sampling, which is just our regular sampling. Random sampling approaches where all the sampling population or location has the equal opportunity to be selected. And then stratified random sampling, where we stratify the landscape depending on a specific soil or crop characteristics or landscape characteristics. So in our analysis, we relied on percent clay content as our stratification parameter. And then there are another sophisticated approach, which is called spatial coverage sampling, where the clustering algorithm called k-means clustering is used to understand the variability represented by the geographical space of the study area. And another one, which is even further complicated and sophisticated. So this is called condition linear hypercube sampling, which is also a stratified random sampling process. But here it considers inputs from suite of environmental variables that can be derived from different type of geospatial data sets. So for our analysis, we collated about 74 environmental variables produced from LiDAR-derived digital elevation model and soil and vegetation indices derived from Sentinel-2 satellite image. And then we ran statistical analysis on those and finally selected 12 of them for our subsequent statistical selection process. So then iteratively, we ran 2 statistical tests, which looks at the probability distribution of sampling design. So at 100% sampling design, we had 670 soil samples covering that 1,600 hectare farm that I presented previously. We then created different sampling sizes at 10%, 20%, and 30%, and so on of this original set. So that means at 10%, we have only 67 samples as opposed to the original set of 670 soil samples. And as you look at these graphs, the top one is showing the KL divergence, which is a statistical matrix, and measures how one probability distribution diverges from a reference distribution, that is the full sample sizes here. And the bottom one, the Bhattacharya distance, which measures the similarity between 2 probability distribution, such as the 100% sample size and 30% sample size. And in both cases, the higher value means the weak capturing of spatial variability across the farmland. And in this graph, the x-axis is showing the different type of sampling strategy, the simple random sampling, the spatial coverage sampling, then CLHS, the condition linear hypercube, and then finally the stratified random samplings. And the y-axis is either showing the KL divergence or Bhattacharya distance. And as the value increases along the y-axis, the spatial variability capturing declines. So as you can see, CLHS performed the best because CLHS takes into consideration of spatial variability captured through different geospatial data set. For our case, we utilize LiDAR data and satellite images to capture the spatial variability across the farm. And as you can see, if you look at the KL divergence value, as I am highlighting with that red rectangle, the spatial variability represented at 100% versus the 30% sampling sizes are almost equal. That means we can effectively monitor the soil health, spatial variability across this farm only with the 30% of the samples compared to the 100% of the sample sizes, which is 670. And this is a significant reduction of sample numbers and subsequent cost related to that. So with this modeling exercise, our goal is to produce a prototype sample optimization tools using freely available geospatial information. So ultimately, we foresee a tool where anyone can draw a polygon on their web browser, like as you were seeing on the screen. And then our system will automatically look at inherent soil characteristics through the information it gathers from USDA Web Soil Survey or SARGO data sets, or the topographic variability from digital elevation model. And then it will also look at crop performance based on vegetation indices over a 5-year period during a peak growing season, or the soil brightness index over a 5-year period before planting or after harvest, because soil brightness can reflect variability in terms of where more carbon is being accumulated, where we have more fine textured soil, or where we have more moisture accumulation, and so on. And based on this information, our model, backend model, will perform all the statistical tests that I was explaining in the previous slide, and finally produce a sampling design as you are seeing on the screen now. Because here I added 10 points across this field, because a producer may decide to do, this year I have money for 10 sample points. Where are those optimum location based on my soil characteristics and crop performance over the last 5 years? And we are hoping that our model will spit out those 10 locations, which are the most optimum spot that optimizes the spatial variability across that selected study area. We may ask for 50 points, and it will populate 50 locations, which are most optimum to understand the spatial variability. So we are hoping at some point we'll be able to develop these tools and offer to use it freely. So initially we are testing for Indiana locations, but we are hoping to develop these tools for a larger area eventually. So I will conclude with these few things. And so we currently live in a golden era of Earth observation technologies. Every day, petabytes of data sets are being collected through different satellite sensors. We are collecting our own data sets through UAVs, through proximal sensing, which is providing extreme level of digital innovations for site-specific and precision management of soils and crops. And by adopting these tools and technologies, we can promote sustainable management practices to meet the increasing food demand by optimizing resource utilization. And with the work at my lab, the GEMS lab at Purdue University, I am largely investing to contribute to this space of digital innovation in the coming years. I acknowledge to all these funding sources, as well as to my amazing grad student and postdoc in my lab, who are doing most of the heavy lifting, and I'm doing this fun job of talking to you. So thanks very much, and I'll be happy to take any question.
All right, thank you, Sid. Anyone have any questions? You can feel free to put them in the chat box, or even open up your mic if you want to ask them. We're okay with that. All right. So Walt is asking, what is the important message to share with farmers?
So one important message I would share that, when I talk to farmers, in many cases, I feel like farmers are unsure in many cases what this technology can bring in, how the investments are, how complicated the process is. So I would say, yes, this is probably daunting to start with all this complex AI, machine learning, and what we are hearing and reading everywhere, right? So I think if we start slowly investing in these activities from now, maybe we can get the fruit out of it at some point in the coming years. Like in my lab, we love to interact and work directly with the farmers in farmlands and produce results that's more applicable for on-farm activities. So I would say starting now and look into the future.
Right. Any other questions? I did launch the poll, so if you want to fill that out while we're asking questions, we'd appreciate it. Anyone have any other questions for Sid? Oh, I have one in the chat box. Oh, it's just Walt saying thank you.
Yeah. Has the professor experimented much with crushed rock materials added to cropland soils, really? Has has he experimented with anything like that for added organic matter?
So far, I have not.
Mhm.
I started doing some project in Canada, in Newfoundland, where we have lots of rocks in soil. Probably whenever I sample, 70-80% of them is rocks. So there are certain challenge to work with those soil in terms of adding organic matter, and probably it takes years before we can see some impacts in that type of soil. So personally, I don't have any data sets or clear guidance to share based on my work, but I understand that there might be some more challenges involved for building soil organic matter in that type of soil.
I see. Yeah, the Pacific Northwest has a lot of basaltic rock. It has a good unlimited supply of basaltic rock there.
Yeah.
If that could work to reduce global climate change, well, that
You're
would
right, exactly. That could be another very interesting avenue for helping with all the carbon sequestration effort for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Are there any other questions for Sid? If not, I'm going to share my screen again.
Mhm.
And maybe. All right, now is the time that we normally would break out and go into our discussion groups. We are not going to do that because Zoom is not working right today. So there's a lot of people that couldn't get in, and so we're not gonna break out. We're gonna stay here because I'm afraid if you leave, you won't get back in to any room. So if you have any questions or discussion to talk with your peers, we're going to do that next. But if you have any topic ideas for future digital cafes, please let anyone from the Soil Health Nexus know. Walt Sal from Purdue is on. He's also one of the other directors, and we will be happy to bring those ideas, and we're happy to get the speakers. Next month, our digital cafe will be on May 21st, and we have Eric Simon from the University of Arkansas. We went a little farther south, and he's going to be talking to us about poultry litter and soil health data findings that they have been doing a lot of research in Arkansas, and he's going to present those to us. So with that, research in that area, but again, I don't know the validity